Stanford University.
So hello everyone, welcome to CS 193P, special Friday session number 6, I believe. Today we have Max Mueller and Ricardo Cortez from Apple, who are going to talk about publishing on the App Store. There you go.
Excellent, thank you. As mentioned, is Max Mueller. I'm the director of the iTunes Store Content Engineering Group. So it's my group's responsibility for handling all things content for the iTunes Store as well as the App Store. And this is actually the talk that we gave at WWDC. So where it's talking about preparing for iPhone 3.0, you can kind of assume that iPhone 3.0 is shipped at this point. So at this point, we're going to look at three things, which is the process of publishing a new application to the App Store. We'll also talk about in-app purchases, which was added with iPhone 3.0. And last, we're going to talk about some of the tools that are available for you to manage your apps once they're available within the App Store. And then at the end, open it up for Q&A. So for publishing your app, simple 5-step process. The first step is to set up an account in iTunes Connect. iTunes Connect is your online web portal for managing your apps and your content within the App Store. Prerequisite is that you must be a member of the paid iPhone Developer Program. In the iPhone Developer Program portals, where you're going to register for your distribution provisioning profile, as well as set up your other team users. Once you have that, you're going to access iTunes Connect at itunesconnect.apple.com. One thing that we always like to point out to people is once you do have access to iTunes Connect, you're going to want to set up your contracts, banking, and tax information as soon as possible. Sometimes you can hit snags in that process, and so we want you to try to go through that first. And the last point is to point out if you're thinking about think about the company versus individual upfront, changing from selling apps as an individual, cutting over those same apps to then be represented under a company, and vice versa, is actually a fairly arduous process. So you just want to think about if you are going in for commercial development, which way you want to set up your account, set up your commercial information. To get to that, again, log into iTunes Connect, and you'll click on the contracts, tax, and banking information, and it will walk you through everything that you need to know to get set up for commercial distribution. So once you have an account, once you've set up all your information, the first step is to add a new app. To do this, you're going to log in and click on Manage Your Applications. And if this is your first time logging into this module, it's hard to see here, but there's actually a user guide that's linked off the bottom part of the page. The user guide will walk through everything that we cover here in detail, as well as give examples. So you want to download that and read through that first. So in the upper left-hand corner, we'll click Add a New Application. Now, the first time you add a new app, we're going to ask you for two pieces of information. The first is your primary language. This is all about your marketing text. This is the language that we're going to assume that you're setting up the default information about your application. This doesn't have anything to do with actually the localization of your app, which you're going to take place within your Xcode project. This is all about just your marketing information for how it's going to be presented on the store. And then finally, your company name. Other thing to point out is you can't change these later on, so you want to make sure you get them right the first time and don't fat finger them. iTunes is located within the United States. As such, we're going to ask you 4 questions about your use of encryption within your application. If you do need to get a CCATS form, that's the website that you can get to for the government. Next up are to enter your application details. This is stuff like your application name, your description, categories, copyright and version information, application support URLs, support email address, and end-user license agreement if you have one, as well as a SKU number. The support email address isn't something that actually shows up within the actual App Store, but it is something that we will use internally to contact you in the case of a support issue. The other thing to point out is your SKU number, like your company name, it cannot be changed about your application. And this will appear within your financial reports at the end of the month. New for iPhone 3.0, we added parental controls. The parental controls are based upon app advisories. We ask you to categorize your application according to this list of advisories. Based on these selections, we'll determine the rating of your app. The App Store ratings are just a simple age-based rating of 4+, 9+, 12+, and 17+. And here's the shot within the store. So next up, we're going to ask you to upload your actual assets. A few things that you're going to want to check about your project before you upload it to the store. The first is that you've included a 57 by 57 application icon. Note that shine and rounded corners are automatically applied to your icon within the store. However, if you would like to pre-shine your icon, you can set the UI pre-rendered icon flag within the info.plist file, and we'll respect that and not shine the icon. Next up is your app ID. You'll create your app ID and your distribution and provisioning profile both within the iPhone Developer Program portal. All bundle identifiers within all the apps are unique. Also added with iPhone 3.0 were the device capabilities. This is a way that you can, if your application absolutely requires, for instance, a microphone or a camera, you can set the UI required device capabilities array within your info.plist. And in this way, the store as well as iTunes will prevent syncing or purchasing of an application onto, pushing it onto a device if the device does not satisfy those requirements. Last up, you'll want to build your application for upload to us. It's gotten easier in the 3.2 SDK, but for now, you basically will set your active SDK to device. You're going to set your configuration to release. You're going to set your code signing identity to your distribution identity. You're going to set your signing distribution provisioning profile up. Once your app has been built, you're going to compress that to a zip, and it'll be that zip that you'll then be uploading in iTunes Connect or using Application Loader. Next asset we're going to require from you is a 512 by 512 version of your icon. We use this icon within the iTunes Store and other places that will need larger versions of your icon instead of 57 by 57. Last up, we ask for up to 5 screenshots. Say a 420 by 320 or 480 by 320. So once you've put all your assets up, the last section is to specify availability. Availability breaks down to 2 pieces of information. First is your availability date. This is the earliest date at which your initial application can appear live within the App Store. And the second is the territories. By default, worldwide distribution is assumed. However, if you'd like to, well, actually, since this slide, we've actually opened it up to where you can manage your apps in all 90 territories. So we're giving you individual control at this point. And last, for commercial distribution, you'd be selecting a price tier. The price tier corresponds to all the different retail price points for the customers, and then you can see the proceeds on the on this side. So for for instance, this is a price tier 10, corresponds to all the customer prices on the left and the proceeds on the right. For each individual proceed, you'll basically be getting a financial report at the end of every month, giving you the breakdown for each one of these territories. Now we're actually going to hold both of the demos. We'll do both of the demos at once. So Ricardo will be covering going through the app flow as well as going through the in-app purchase flow. So in-app purchases were something that were added with iPhone 3.0. So we're going to walk through the process of once you have an application or you're developing a new app that is using the in-app purchases API and kind of what that process looks like from a developer's perspective. So for the first part, you're going to set up you're going to add a new item. If you're setting up an app for the first time where you haven't uploaded an app, you're going to go into the iPhone Developer Program portal and you're going to reserve your bundle identifier. Once your bundle identifier has been reserved, we will then provision it in the sandbox testing environment. So to do this, you log into the iPhone Developer Program portal, select your bundle identifier, and check the box to enable for in-app purchases. Once you've done that, then you can log in and click Manage your in-app purchases. From here, you'd set up a new item. An item is something that you're going to be selling to the consumer from within your application. And in this case, once you add a new item, you'll be then selecting the application that you'd like to add the item to. So for adding an item, we're going to ask you for a few pieces of information. The first is a reference name. This is merely a name for you, for how you want to essentially keep track of this item. A product ID, which again is not changeable. The item type. We currently support 3 item types: non-consumable, consumable, and subscription. Now, there's been a lot of confusion out there over the different types here. So the best way to think of it is non-consumable are those things that the customer would not consume within the course of the gameplay. So this would be if you were selling a level pack or a race, where once purchased, to unlock functionality, that functionality should always be unlocked throughout the course, even if the user restores. Consumable will be something like you're selling a 100 pack of bullets. At this point, it's kind of like the quarter going into the game machine. You purchase something, and then the user is basically consuming that product. And subscription is an item that in the case of a non-consumable, if the user were to try to purchase it again, we would give it to them free, the same way we would an app. If you purchase an app and you delete it from your phone and you repurchase it, we give it to you free again. Non-consumables are treated the same way. So if you try to purchase that same level pack again, we just give it to you free. But in the case of subscription, we actually allow the user to repurchase it over and over again. Because in the case, it's slightly different than a consumable in that a subscription type is required to function across all devices. So if I have 3 devices and I purchase a subscription to the Wall Street Journal, then the requirement on the developer is that that subscription must be available on all 3 devices. So it's a slight where a consumable is not required to appear across all those devices. You purchase bullets in one app, even if you play it on another one, we don't make any requirements there. So there's been a lot of confusion around there, and I hope that clears a little bit of it up. And last are the price tiers. Price tiers, again, all the price tiers available for selling your application are available for selling your in-app purchase items. Next up are the localized titles and descriptions. Point out that within the Cocoa Touch interface, the actual buy button, buy window that's popped up is actually popped up from the server. So we're driving that display. It isn't actually something that's driven from within your applications. So you set up all the titles and descriptions within iTunes Connect. And last, for review purposes, we do ask you to provide one 320 by 480 screenshot. Once you've set up a bunch of items for an application, the next step is to test your in-app purchase items. To do this, we've set up a sandbox environment. First thing you're going to want to do is actually set up user accounts in your sandbox environment. To do this, you log into iTunes Connect and click Manage Users. And you want to select the in-app purchase test user. Here, in the upper left-hand corner, you click Add New User. Sandbox users are pretty much just like iTunes users in that we require first name, last name, an email address, password, secret question and answer, date of birth, and last, a country. If you want to test how your in-app purchases work in the United States, Canada, and Japan, you'd set up 3 test accounts for those 3 users. Within, I believe the simulator now points at the sandbox environment, as well as apps that you basically purchased, apps that you're testing that you just had a developer sign will always be pointing at the sandbox environment. Once production signed, they point at the real live environment. Fourth step is obviously to test your in-app purchase items. And once you're ready to, you're going to submit your in-app purchases. Now, there's 2 types of submissions for in-app purchase items. In one case, you're tying your in-app purchase items submission to your binary. And you'd want to do this if, for instance, your application required your in-app purchase items. When you're submitting a binary, you then select the in-app purchase items to basically travel with it through the review process. If you already have an application live that already has at least one in-app purchase item live, we allow you to do what's deemed kind of ad hoc submission of in-app purchase items. If, for instance, every month you're posting a new item for purchase, then you don't have to resubmit a new binary just to add a new in-app purchase item. So to do this, you log in and select the application that you have in-app purchase items on. And here you will see that the in-app purchase item is pending developer sign-off. Once inspecting it, you'd click the Approve button in the upper right-hand corner. And again here, where you're given the option of how you'd like to, if you'd like to basically pin your in-app purchase item to wait for the binary to be submitted, or you just submit it right now to go through the approval flow. And here we see that it's waiting for review. And with that, I'd like to hand it over to Ricardo Cortez, who's the engineering manager for iTunes Store Content Provider Services Group, and he'll walk you through a demo of setting up an app as well as setting up some in-app purchase items.
Hi there, my name is Ricardo Cortez. I'm engineering manager of iTunes Store Content Provider Services, and I'm going to walk you through submitting an app as well as the in-app purchase flow in iTunes Connect. Okay, so iTunes Connect at apple.com. When you arrive, you see the main screen. We call these different sections modules. The one of interest for this demo is Manage Your Applications. As you can see, I have an application I've set up previously. I'm going to go ahead and set up a new application. So Add New Application, upper left-hand corner. I'm going to answer the export compliance questions. Obviously, if you answer yes through these, you'll be driven to upload a CCATS form, but for the purposes of this demo, let's pretend that my app does not contain anything regarding encryption. Okay, so the first pane after the encryption questions is the Add New Application metadata collection pane. And app name is the first thing you need to enter. So we're going to create a geek tracker here. So application description, track geeks around the Stanford campus. In terms of restricting this to specific platforms, I want this to be as wide as possible. I'll go ahead and answer no. If you answer yes, we're going to drive you to a URL where we detail the device capabilities that Max just alluded to earlier. Primary category, this is a utility. And let's choose productivity for the secondary category. Copyright, version number, SKU, and keywords for searching on the iTunes Store. A few in there. Your application URL, if you have one. Your support URL. Support email address. Oops, sorry. And then the demo account full access, that's some notes in case you need to provide the reviewers some information about how to get through a demo account, et cetera, in case they don't have it. The next page is the ratings advisories content description page. Here you will choose the advisories that describe the content in your app. This is a utility app. There's really none of these actually apply. But as you choose here, you can see the rating does change dynamically. So you will know what your app will be rated as you choose them. I will go ahead and continue on through the flow. Now we're brought to the upload pane. This is the pane for which we will use to upload all of our assets. I'm not going to upload the binary just now. If I choose upload application later, I can come back in when I've actually got the binary tested and ready to go and upload it here in iTunes Connect, or I can use Application Loader, which is a separate Cocoa application, to submit it through the iTunes Store. Large icon. I'll go ahead and upload that. That's the 512 by 512 that's used on the desktop store. You can go ahead and see that. There it is. And then the primary screenshot that was taken on the device. This screenshot is used both on the device store as well as on the desktop store to show the customer's potential view of the application. I just have a standard Apple icon, Apple image here. You have the ability to upload 4 more screenshots if you'd like. I'll go ahead and skip that for now. The pricing tab, most important tab for those that are interested in making money. I want it to go live as soon as possible. I'll set the availability date to today, and I'll choose tier 10. As you choose the tiers, you see the customer price and proceeds reflected in each of the app stores. In the US, it's $9.99, and the proceeds are $7. And if you're concerned about distribution, as Max mentioned earlier, we have all 90 app stores down here. You can actually remove your app in specific territories if you would like to do so. Localizations, I'm not going to add a localization just now, but you can add it in French or German so that viewers that are viewing your app in German can get a different description and or screenshots for your application. The review tab gives you kind of a quick rundown on the metadata you've edited so far before you actually submit. It's your confirmation page. So if I view the App Store, say in France, at the bottom here, the customer price and proceeds are reflected in euros. Again, you have a chance to see the rating, the URLs you've entered, the keywords, all the metadata you've supplied so far. And then at the bottom, go ahead and hit Submit Application. So now you see I've got in my recent activity, Geek Tracker 1.0 as well as TouchFighter from the WWDC demo. So what I'd like to do now is take you back to the home page and walk you through the Manage Your In-App Purchases module. So manage your in-app purchases. You'll go to this module, and you'll get a list of apps for which you can manage your in-app purchases. I'll go ahead and use one previously set up called TouchFighter 2. I'll hit Create New. And the first thing I'm presented with is the reference name, the product ID, the type, and the price tiers in terms of the metadata I need to supply. We'll call this one Missiles 2. Product ID, Com, Stanford, Geek Tracker, Missiles 2. It's a consumable. And I'll set the tier to 2. Ensure it's cleared for sale. And provide a screenshot for review purposes. Let me find my missile screenshot. There it is. Oop. Let's try a different one. OK. I'll go ahead and save that. Oop, I have to add a language. There we go. Let's add a language here. Let's add English. OK, displayed name, Missiles 2. OK. Cool. So on the right, you can see I've got pending developer approval. So at this time, what I would do is I would code up my app against the StoreKit framework. I'd ensure that I was hitting the sandbox environment, and I ensure the functionality of my in-app purchase works. I'd perform some quality assurance on it, and then I would actually come in here and submit it through to iTunes Connect for review. So in order to test in sandbox environment, you need to actually have sandbox users. Let me show that to you real quick. This is part of the Manage Users module on the bottom left here on the home screen of iTunes Connect. And you're given a choice, iTunes Connect user or in-app purchase test user. That's also the same thing as Sandbox. I already have a user set up. I'll go ahead and add a new one. Sorry. Okay. Nice. We have a few validations in the portal. Okay, so at this point, I've set up my Sandbox user. This is the user I would use then on the device to test in sandbox mode to ensure that my in-app purchase was working correctly. Let me take you through a few other modules here. Financial reports, this is where you would go and get a monthly report of all your sales. So that's a very important module. I don't have any sales for any of these apps, so nothing shows up. Sales and trends takes you to another website where you can actually get more fine-grained access to your sales data hourly and daily. So if anyone is familiar with the sales in iTunes Store, this is another often visited site. And then contact us if you've got questions or you've got something you need to ask. You can drive down through this list of questions, and it'll dynamically drive you hopefully to the right answer. So in a nutshell, that's iTunes Connect. I'll bring Max back on stage, and he can walk through the rest of the portal.
All right, thank you, Ricardo. All right, so the last part is we're just going to cover a few of the tools available for you to manage your applications once your applications are live and functioning on the store. The first are finance reports, for any of you that have selected for paid application distribution. The finance reports are posted once a month. They're located under the Financial Reports tab. And we hold all the financial reports that we've ever posted to you here, so you can always go back at any point and download them. Next up, if you don't want to wait until the end of the month to see how your application's doing, we do provide daily reports as well as weekly reports. To get those are located at the top, which are just used for sales or trend reporting. Here you can select the day that you're interested in or the week period. We hold the weeks for up to 13 weeks, and I believe we hold like 7 or 10 days back. Next up are promo codes. Promo codes are a way for you to promote your applications either before they're available for sale on the store or after they're available for sale. We allow up to 50 codes per version of your application. The codes are good for up to 4 weeks. They're currently only available within the US for US iTunes Store accounts, and they are royalty free. And most importantly, they are for non-commercial distribution. Applications are pulled for violation of that. So under the site, you could click Request Promotional Codes. Here, every version of your application is listed. And then you can select the number of codes. So in this case, TouchFighter 1.0, 48 codes are remaining in this particular example. One thing to note is the promo codes do not actually respect the availability date. So for instance, if you had your application into the system, it was approved with an availability date of, say, September 1, and you're in the middle of August, you could actually go in and generate promotional codes and distribute out those promotional codes ahead of time for review purposes before the application is actually posted on the store. So it's kind of a good tool. And last are crash logs. Crash logs we post on approximately a weekly basis. We aggregate together all the logs that are coming in from all the phones and iPod Touches out, and we aggregate all this information together. To get to a crash logs for your application, you click on the application details and view crash reports. Crash reports break down into 3 types. The first are actual crashes of your application. The second are freezes, and the third are if it's jettisoned due to memory pressure. For for crashes as well as freezes, we give you the top 10 current examples for the past week, and up to 5 example traces, so you can load index code. And then for the memory, we give you kind of the average and maximum memory size as reported to us from the crashes. And last, we give you a breakdown of the crashes versus memory of a total percentage. So in this case, you can tell that obviously we need to be focusing on our crashes, and not necessarily on the freezes. Few other things that we just like to always point out is that to test your application thoroughly. Believe it or not, the majority of application rejections actually come because of buggy software. And then last was to avoid adding pricing or other textual into the icons or screenshots. It's also a no-no. And then again, this summary was obviously targeted towards WWDC, and that was very much a test for 3.0, but at this point you should all know how to do that. And then Mark was the evangelist for that session. So at this point, I mean, it's pretty much open to questions, or there'll be a new presentation for WWDC 10. But that was the talk that we gave, and at this point, if there are any questions or anything like that, happy to answer them if I can. Yeah.
Updating the description and/or keywords. Can you do that whenever you want?
Descriptions are available to be updated at any point. Keywords are part of the review process. So the description is not used for indexing or searching purposes. Only the keywords are. So yeah.
Can you also modify the pricing?
Pricing you can change at any point. So pricing is completely, it's an agency model, and as such, you can change the pricing at will.
Product ID, that com dot something?
That is just for the royalty purposes. Your product, your identifier, your SKU, whatever you're using to identify both your in-app purchase items.
Can you repeat the questions?
Oh,
Yeah.
sure. What is the product ID? Alex, for no. The product ID is the identifier that will appear within the financial reports. The only restriction is that it must be unique across all in-app purchase items for a given developer. So you could have the same product ID as a friend who had another company, but within your context, it must always be unique. Same goes for the SKU or the product ID for the application. So, yep.
Selling as an individual different from selling as a company?
Individual versus company is really just about tax. As a company, there are certain tax advantages that you can have, but it's also more paperwork involved. So the individual versus company is more, if we're paying an individual, then you're going to be filing that in your W-2. If we're paying a company, then you're going to be filing that as part of the company's tax return. So it's more, we ran into a lot a lot of early developers who went in as individuals, started making money, and then decided they wanted to be companies. And it's a little, it's the way in which the contracts are currently set up, it just is a little bit arduous to go through that.
Yeah, you want to make sure that you choose wisely in the beginning. The switching later is not an easy task.
Yeah. Yep.
Is there a report for sort of lifetime of the app? You know, lifetime sales, lifetime downloads, that kind of report. I think most of the reports are monthly, and I was just wondering if there's one place in there you could get lifetime information.
No. Right now, lifetime reporting isn't available, but good feedback. So. Yes.
Regarding the description, and also the screenshots, can that also be updated whenever? And what's the lag time between my updating them and the time they show up in the store?
Screenshots are currently you can update screenshots at will. The lag is approximately, it's usually within 3 to 6 hours. 3 to 6 hours is usually from, all the different devices have different cache periods. So generally speaking, you should be able to see your changes within 3 to 6 hours. So, any other questions? Yes.
I've heard a wide variety of time lengths to get through the approval process. Can you
Yes.
talk a little bit about, some people takes 3 days, some people takes 3 months. Any thoughts about that?
So we've added what we refer to, what's the public name for the tracking?
Oh, it's
What do we,
just status history.
status history, all right.
Yeah.
So now as part of the, when you submit your application for review, there's a detailed status history of your application as it travels through the process. So you can see as it's moving through the different gates. I know that, I don't think we have any public comment as Apple on essentially that process. I know that there's if you look up statistics by Phil, are quoting that I think like 96% of apps that are submitted make it through within 7 days now. I think that's our late. Don't quote me on the statistics part, but it's the statements that are coming out. So can't comment on it beyond that.
So when you were demoing the in-app purchases edition, it was cleared for sale immediately. Is that because of this as a demo, or is that really sort of done that quickly for adding in-app purchases?
Oh no, that is this on?
Restate.
Yeah, that is literally just it's a metadata field. So if you want to actually develop the in-app purchase and then submit it through for approval, as soon as it's approved, if you mark clear for sale false or unchecked, it won't go live to customers. So then you'd have the ability to go back and mark it clear for sale and turn it on when your marketing was ready, for example.
Yeah, the part to watch out for is if you have an existing application out in the field that is using that in-app purchase item and you were to unclear it from sale, those purchases would stop happening on the field, at which point you might have unhappy customers.
Yeah, and the reverse is also true. The corollary, I guess, is also true with respect to the app. If you move the app's availability data out into the future, then you adversely affect the in-app purchases that reside within that app. So, I mean, if you go and change your availability date on your app to say Christmas, and it's March, in-app purchases that belong to the app would be adversely affected in terms of their availability on the store, because they're basically inherently a little parent-child relationship with the in-app purchases in the app.
They move forward relatively as well.
Yeah.
The in-app purchase availability takes into account the availability data of the application.
Your demo, your presentation, you mentioned quality and bugs are good reason for rejection.
Yes.
Do you have any other kind of a checklist that you can point us at? Like an FAQ or list of things to do and not do, tips and tricks to not get rejected?
Yeah, so the WWR portal, the iPhone developer portal, which is also our sister site, that's where you go to register $99 every year to pay for the program. They have lots of tutorials with respect to guidelines and overall kind of the iPhone developer process, as well as on iTunes Connect, as we mentioned, the developer guide has a lot of guidelines as well. So the developer guide is revved every time we make major changes to iTunes Connect, and it's been a very good tool with respect to documentation. Go ahead.
You go to the in-app purchases, if you've got version 1.5 of your app and you update it to 1.7, but the in-app purchases are only applicable to the newest version, is that up to the app developer? Or if someone has version 1.5, can they buy the in-app?
They can. In-app purchases actually travel with the parent level of the app. They're not specific to the version, and they're across all your versions.
But I think the question is, if you added in-app purchase items to your 1.7 and 1.5 did not have it, then the way to trigger your in-app purchase items is actually through code. You literally are calling into the StoreKit API saying, we would like to purchase with this particular identifier. And that is what actually triggers the popping of the dialog and then the server communication. So if you aren't making those calls in your 1.5 app, then there isn't a way to get your in-app purchase items. And likewise, that's where the unique identifiers come into play as well. Meaning, if you were selling a racetrack in your 1.5 version under one identifier, and let's say you've revved it and create a new one, you probably want to create a new in-app purchase item. You wouldn't want to reuse that existing one potentially, because the description might be different or the title might be different. So just stuff to keep in mind. And I believe actually all of the StoreKit API, the StoreKit docs around in-app purchase items actually got revved a month or two ago.
Yeah.
Yeah, I went through a large overhaul. It's a much larger kind of, it walks through kind of a much better end-to-end process from what the API is using all the way through the iTunes Connect part. And it had been fairly disparate before, but a month or two ago they updated all those docs. So Great. Any other questions? All right. Good luck. Thanks.
Thank you.
For more, please visit us at stanford.edu.